Today I will be sharing a little bit about when low code meets pro code. So I'm going to go straight ahead and share my screen. There we go. So as I've mentioned, welcome to the Festive Tech Calendar when low code meets pro code. Just a short little bit about who I am. My name is Kirika Buerta. For those who don't know me, I am from South Africa. I'm a Microsoft MVP in the Power Apps and Power Automate space. I have done some international speaking, and I'm a software development consultant at iSolve Business Solutions at the moment. Please feel free to connect with me via LinkedIn. Great stuff. Let's jump straight into it. So we've had recently in November, we've had the .NET conference, and being a low coder myself, I'm also a pro coder at times. And yes, with the .NET platform, we've recently announced .NET 10. And the idea is that with .NET, you can build anything on top of any of the platforms that you would like to build on. And the same applies with Power Platform. So with the Power Platform, we've got the full suite where we've got Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, as well as now Copilot Studio, which used to be Power Virtual Agents, and that's evolved quite a lot. So today I want to just go a little bit over as to how you can merge those two worlds of pro code and low code. So the question is, why would I mix .NET and Power Platform? The truth of the matter is, us as makers, low code developers, citizen developers, we love speed. We love doing things quickly, getting things out of the way, and avoiding red tape as far as possible, right? Now, pro code developers love control because we all know who's in control, right? I just love this meme. So pro code developers love control, and us as makers, we love speed so that we can have quick turnarounds. When we mix those two, we get lightning flash speed and control, right? So it can go at a great big acceleration. Cool. So for those of you who know me, I don't do a lot of slides. I like to jump into the demo very fast because no one likes death by PowerPoint, right? So just very quickly on what it is that I will be building today. I've just made a .NET project with it's basically a cute, tiny little microservice where I've got some JSON requests, posts, and gets that I will be passing, and then I will be using those as a custom connector. I've built a custom connector, which will then be exposing or using those in our Power Automate flow. So we've got a get.christmas, which will give us a little bit of a Christmas greeting. We've got a post, which will summarize a little Christmas greeting or blurb for us. And then we've got an OpenAI file that was created in the pro code state. I'm also using ngrok just as my kind of dev channel to make sure that the post and get is working. It's literally a tiny API that we've built. It's called minimal APIs in the .NET framework, the .NET space. And then I've just built in a little API key just so you can see that it can be secured as well. So this is obviously such a simple demo on just combining pro code with low code. What this enables is it enables your pro code developers to still have the control that they want and love, and they can develop the minimal APIs as to how to talk to maybe certain systems and what to pass, what not to pass. And then us as makers can use that through the means of a custom connector in our flows or even in our apps. So let's just go ahead. Once again, just going over how it all flows together. We've obviously got Power Automate, and we'll be making use of a custom connector for this demo. And then I've used ngrok just for that connection so that we have that connection. And then we're using a .NET 10 minimal API. Okay. So with that said, let's jump straight into the demo. So I'm going to go ahead and share the code that I've built. So for us as makers, this might seem a little bit intimidating sometimes. Please don't let it intimidate you. We've got a good help from our GitHub Copilot, which will also be able to assist you with building this quickly and fast and set it up. But just to go over what we've got, I'm just going to close that quickly. So what we have on the left-hand side, let me just close the screen. Just hide it for now. So what we have on the left-hand side is we've got a C# solution where we have a program.cs. This is where the logic of our application sits and the minimal API conditions and criteria is set up in the .cs file. So you'll see here we've got quite a few things, but the most important is obviously our get. So what makes this a minimal API is the fact that we use app.mapget, and that is really simple if you look at compared to in the past how we had to set up APIs and the amount of things that needed to be in place. Now we just go app.mapget for our gets, we go app.mappost for our posts. So if I just highlight that, so we've got a total of 4. We've got a get, just a hello to say hello from .NET. Then we've got a Christmas greeting where you can actually, based on the date that we are in, at the moment it's going to default to our Merry Christmas greeting. But if we were in a different month, let's say November, October, it would easily go to happy holidays. So you can see how you can build in some logic. Maybe think of emailers that you want to send out to people. This is obviously very festive, sticking to the festive theme, but there's so many other things that you can do with it. With this is just a very, once again, very simple example, but we're just building a simple API. Then we've got a post where we obviously summarize some text. It could just be a string that we're passing with a blurb. The same with the Christmas, and we're just adding a little Merry Christmas greeting to that. And then how the summary works is we've actually put in some logic to cut the summary off whenever there is either a full stop, a comma, an exclamation mark, or a question mark. So whatever your sentence is, if one of those characters, the moment that it picks up on one of those characters, that's the summary that it will send. So that's pretty much what we have in our program.cs, right? What we also need for our custom connector, and this has proven to be really helpful, is an open API file. So this is this maker.net API, openapi.json. So this is what we will use, and we will pass this information into our custom connector setup so that we can predefine all the functions that we have, our gets and our posts. And then what we'll do is when we set up the custom connector, we will also set up a policy for unwrap. This is just a warning, but I wanted to show you the full functionality of how policies work and how to bypass things that needs to be built in, or also put in requirements inside of the custom connector. So obviously in this JSON.file, we've obviously got our open API version. We've got a title. And all of this you'll see when we create up a custom connector, all of these details will pull through. We've obviously got our URL to our ngrok, and then we've got our functions, right? It's obviously our hello, which will just return the hello message and what it would return. The same with Christmas. And then the same with our posts and what it expects, right? The variables that it is expecting. And then obviously if it fails, what it should return. And then we've obviously, this is our Christmas one. And then just some components in there with the security schemes. And we've got a API key that we will be passing into this. So basically this JSON file is what we will be using to create our custom connector. So before we even start with the custom connector part and building our flow, what we'll do is we need to make sure that these services are started. Obviously our .NET project needs to run. And this can be hosted in Azure so that it is on at all times. And then we obviously have to make sure that our ngrok environment is also up and running so that when we do our functions, it can see that server. So in here, what we're going to do is I'm just going to quickly clear this terminal. So what we need to do is obviously start our .NET environment. So our .NET project, we need to start that. I'm just going to copy and paste this in here. Okay. Why is it not pasting? Let me just try this again. The fun of live demos, right? There we go. So what we're doing here is we're obviously setting an environment. We're making sure that this is a development environment. Once we go to prod, that would change. We've got our API key that we are passing, and then just the local hosts. And then we're going to start running our .NET project. So once that is up and running, happiness, our .NET project is running. The next step that we want to do is set up our ngrok to start running as well. So we're going to just go ngrok and then point to localhost, because that's our .NET project that's currently running. So that is up and running. And then lastly, what we want to do just to make sure that it's going to work when we get to our custom connector is we just want to do a test to quickly make sure that our functions can be called. So I just want to copy this in here just to make sure that it will be running. And there we go. We have established that it works because we get a little hello from .NET. So that's great. So now that we know that everything's up and running, we know we will be able to call our functions. The next step that we will need to do is to obviously go into Power Automate. So I'm just going to quickly open the Power Automate environment here. You'll see that I've already created a custom connector. We're now going to create a new one, which will include our Festive functions as well. So we're going to click on New Custom Connector. But first, before we do that, just how we get to custom connectors for those who don't know is you would click on More and you would click on Discover All, because it isn't on the left-hand side by default. And then from the Discover All, under Data, you would find Custom Connectors. Okay, so once again, it's More, Discover, and then it's going to be Custom Connectors. So once you've navigated to Custom Connectors, we are going to click on New Custom Connector. And as you can see, there's quite a few options that we have. You can either create it from blank, you can create it from an Azure service, you can import an open API file, which is the one that we will be doing. You can import an open API file from a URL. If it was hosted in Azure, you could have easily done it via this step. You can also import a Postman collection. So you could have built your JSON via Postman, or you can import it from GitHub. So there's quite a few options to import these files. We're going to just import an open API file, and I'm going to call it Festive low code meets pro code, just so that when we reference our custom connector, I know what it is called. So it's Festive low code meets pro code, and we're going to import this file. And we're going to choose the maker.net API open API, because that's the one that I know has our functions in it. We're going to select it and we're going to click on continue. Great stuff. So now that we've got that open, I just quickly want to go here. So some of these fields are defaulted and you can leave it as is. So you would see that it already pulled through the description, the icon, background color. If you were to update the icon, you can do that as well and set a color. Our scheme is HTTPS, so something to just note is when creating a custom connector, it has to be HTTPS. Power Automate does not like HTTP. And then we've got our host, which also pulled through from our open API file, and then the base URL. So on the first screen, under the general tab, there isn't really much we have to do unless you wanted to change the icon or maybe update the description. You could easily do that. So next, our next tab is the security tab, and you would notice that it also, once again, already pre-populated the authentication type that we chose or specified in our file. There are a few options here. You can either choose no authentication, basic authentication, and API key, or OAuth 2. We are going with the API key. And then obviously this is the parameter label, the parameter name, and it's going to be in the header location. So once again, nothing that you really need to, because we've got this open API file and we've specified it in there already, we don't have to pre-populate these things. It's already pre-populated for us. So next we're going to go to the definition, which is the third tab. And here you would see that in our code, we had those 4 functions, and those 4 functions have pulled through. So once again, because it was specified in the Open API file. So we've got our get hello, and it's got a little bit of a summary. You can add a description if you wanted to. We've got the operation ID, which is get hello, what its visibility is, and then what the request looks like. It's obviously a get. This is the URL, the path, the query, the headers. We don't have any of those specified, so we have this here. We've got a response. This is for a success. You could have added a 400 if it wasn't successful, but it pulled through all of that from our Open API file. The same with get Christmas. It obviously returns a seasonal greeting. You can see how that has updated. The same with post summarize and post summarize Christmas. Okay. So these are our functions. We can see that they all pull through correctly. So for this example, I'm going to be adding, so on the definition, this is where we specify our functions, what they look like. This is also how they would show up in our Power Automate when we build a flow. So this step is very important. And then you can also set up a policy, right? So policy is either to enable or prevent certain things or bypass certain things. So in this case, because I'm using ngrok, that it's got, when you do a get, it's got this little warning page that starts the thing. So we want to bypass that so we can actually get to the function returning what it is that we want. So what we're going to be doing is we are going to be creating a new policy. Okay, and we're going to call it ngrok bypass. Okay, so if we go to the name, and the template that we will be using is set an HTTP header. Okay, so this is just to do a default. And the operations that we want to specifically apply to is our get a hello and get Christmas. And then what it is, so if we look at the header, what we want is for this header name, we wanted to bypass it, and therefore we're setting the value to 1. Okay, and we're going to select override, and we are going to run this policy on a request, not a response. So that's why I chose the get instead of the post, right? Because we only get this warning also on our requests and not our responses. Okay, so once we're happy with that, would have set up our policy. You can see now we've got a policy ngrok bypass. And now that we've done this, we can look at code. So if you wanted to have some actions and triggers which this policy will apply to, which is code details. So it's anything that where we pass custom code or request custom code, then you would enable this. But we are not going to use this step, so we're going to skip this one. We're going to head straight to test. And then obviously, before we will be able to test it, we have to create the connector first. So we're going to click on create connector. So while that is busy creating, once we have created the connector, we're going to have to set up a new connection. So that is where we're going to have to pass our API key. So let me just grab the API key quickly. Okay, so now our connector has been created. We've got our 4 operations that will be used with this custom connector. Before we can test it, we have to set up a new connection. So we're quickly going to do that. You'll see that in order for us to set up this connection, we need to pass the API key. So I'm going to paste that in there, and I'm going to say create connection. If you don't see your connection immediately, just click on the little refresh button. There we go. We've got our Festive low code meets pro code connector that's just been created. And now we can actually test our operation. So just the get hello, if we test this operation, it should return the hello from .NET, which it does successfully. So here we've got our hello from .NET. If we wanted to do the get Christmas, we can test this one as well. And it is successful. So the message is Merry Christmas. And then it's got a little tip as well to say try post summarize Christmas with a long text to get a festive summary. So we'll do that one just now. The post summarize, as I've mentioned, is just a little sentence. If I go hi there with a comma, this is a summary. Because we've got that validation in, whenever there's a character, a comma, exclamation mark, or question mark, it would summarize up to that point. If I test it now, it should just say hi there in our little summary. Or was it a full stop? Maybe it was a full stop. But there we go. We've got our summary returned. Let's say, what else? We test this again. It should just say, hi there, this is a summary. There we go. It shouldn't have the what else because we've got a little question mark. There we go. And the same with the Christmas. We're going to go, happy holidays. Holidays. May all your wishes come true. And we'll do a little exclamation mark and we'll put some hoo, hoo, hoo. After that, I will test the operation. So with that, you'll see that it is returned happy holidays. May all your wishes come true. It doesn't have the ho, 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 but it says Merry Christmas. Okay, so we are happy that all our operations is working. So we can close this. We now know that we have got our Festive low code meets pro code custom connector created. So now what we want to do is now we want to actually go ahead and create a flow which will utilize this custom connector. Okay. So we're going to go to our manage flows and we're going to create a new instant flow just so we can test it very quickly and fast. So we're going to call this our Festive message flow. It's going to be manually triggered. We're going to go ahead and create this. So what we want to do here is obviously in our manual trigger flow, we want to put a parameter with some text, and this is just going to be our greeting. So our greeting, this will be our free text for our post functions, right? So that's going to be fine. Then what we want to do is now we want to add an action, and we actually want to see our custom connectors. So we're going to search for our Festive low code meets pro code. There we go. So there you can see our custom connector is called Festive low code meets pro code. And these are the functions that's available within that custom connector. So what we want to do is we actually want to return a seasonal greeting. That's one of them that we want to do. And because it's not expecting anything, it's just going to do a get. It's going to return that message. There's nothing further that we need to populate as with the post. So let's quickly set up the post action as well. So if we go Festive, low code meets pro code. We also want to summarize text with a festive greeting. Okay, so on this one, on the return seasonal greeting, we obviously don't have anything that we need to pass in there, but in our post where we summarize text with the festive greeting, we actually have to pass something in there. And what we want to pass in there is obviously the text that's coming from our trigger, which will be our greeting. So let's just see where our greeting is. There's our greeting. So we're just going to pass that in there. And then we're just going to do a little bit of a simple compose because I don't want to send an email right now. I'm just going to do a simple compose so that you can see what the output looks like. So in here, we're going to go ho, ho, ho. Happy. Let's go. Happy festive season. And then what we want to post in here is what do we have here? And then a message from Santa. And then we can actually populate it with the body from our seasonal greeting. So we can put the body in there, body message. And then a message from Santa. And then we go and go best wishes. And then we'll pass in our little festive greeting. Okay. Summarize text with festive greeting. Okay. And that's pretty much it. So obviously, once again, I've built this flow super simple, but the idea is just to show how you can build a minimal API using Pro Code, obviously expose some information through there, do some gets, responses and requests, and then how we can use that in our Power Automate workflows or maybe even in our apps. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and then we're going to test it. Okay, let's just wait for it to save. There we go. It has been saved successfully. So now we're going to test it. And we're going to put in a little bit of a greeting. It's going to should ask us for a greeting, obviously signing in. Yes. Then we're going to go happy holidays. Holidays, please travel safely. And then we'll do exclamation mark, don't eat too much. Obviously, that should not be in our summary. So we're going to go ahead and run the flow. There we go. And let's have a look at what our run looks like. So if we quickly go back, there we go. We can see that it's run successfully. The one that we want to focus on is obviously our little compose. And if we look at the outputs for our compose, so let's not look at the raw one. Let's look at this one. So we got ho, 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 happy festive season. What do we have here? A message from Santa is Merry Christmas. And the best wishes is happy holidays. Please travel safely. Merry Christmas. So we have successfully been able to call our APIs that was coming from the Pro code by creating a custom connector and then building a flow that's using the functions that's living inside of that custom connector. So it really is super easy to merge our pro code and low code worlds, which still enables our developers to keep their control, and it helps our makers to do things super fast. So let's quickly jump back to the presentation. Cool. And we want to be on this screen. So once again, just lessons learned from me while building this and playing around. ngrok sometimes shows up a browser warning, which you can fix with a policy, as you've seen, where we can skip that browser warning by setting it to 1. In our custom connector setup, it's important to always use HTTPS because the Power Automate, HTTP and Power Automate doesn't work well together. And then obviously, as I've mentioned, needing to add the policy to the custom connector for the ngrok browser warning. But that was the major blockers that I had while setting up this demo. And with that said, I want to say thank you and I wish you all a very merry, happy Christmas. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.